Well, if you experienced Illinois sports in any way, shape, or form from the mid-'80s to the mid-2000s, you know my guest today in I Call Shotgun. His name is Jim Sheppard, and while his face may or may not be familiar to you, his voice most certainly is. Welcome.
Good to be here. It's always fun to talk to the current guy too.
Yeah,
the guy that has a crazy schedule, but it's good to be with you. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. This would be a lot of fun. You ready to go for a ride?
Let's do it.
All right, let's hit it. I'll try not to hit actually anything.
Okay.
We'll do what we can. Tell me, and I know some of the story, but how did you end up being the public address voice of the Illini? Was that something you aspired to do or kind of fell into?
Well, I'd always been in sports, and back in 2000 and let me back up, 1985, the sports information director at the time, Tim, was Tab Bennett, who was an All-American player for Illinois. I got to know Tab when he came into town to play football for the Illini. He was from Miami, and we became very good friends. And my predecessor, a guy by the name of Tom Trent, left town very suddenly in the summer of 1985, and I was working in the market in local radio, and Tab got a hold of me and asked me to be the PA announcer, and I said, I'd be thrilled to do it. I'd been around Illinois sports all my life, and so that's how I got the job, and it was a great thrill, and it was still a thrill the last time I left 23 years later. So it was a great honor.
Would you say it was just something fun to do and sort of a good part-time job, or would you say it changed you or your life in some way?
Well, I think anybody that does a job like that, and you can relate to this because you're in it now, I think any time that you're in front of the public, people get to know you, and I don't think it really changed my life. I was very blessed working with a lot of great people at the university. I met a lot of coaches and players that I still keep in touch with. My son, Brian Scott, was on the team in '99, and that was a great thrill. And so I don't think it really changed my life. I've always been involved most of my life in the sports world, and it was just a great honor. And there's only one position like that. There's only one PA announcer.
Right.
And I was fortunate to do both Illini football and basketball, and it was just a great ride. Just a lot of great memories. And when I was done, I didn't. You don't really, and I think someday you'll be done too. The games. You miss the games, but the routine and the camaraderie with your fellow media friends and the routine of going to a game is really what I miss the most after I was done. But I don't think it really changed me. I've always been trying to be upbeat and a Illini fan, cheerleader. So
still got the shirt on, so that's a good sign,
I still wear the orange and blue. We still go to games, a tailgate, and it was just a tremendous honor and thrill to do it for as long as I did.
Yeah, 22, 23 years, and you saw so many bits of history, and that's the fun part for me too, is watching sort of history unfold in front of your eyes, and with the best seat in the house.
A good seat.
So where do people find you now? Where do you find, like, you're talking somewhere and someone's ears perk up and go, wait a minute?
I've had it happens occasionally. I've been out in public and I meet somebody and they recognize my voice. I think one of the stranger time that happened is years ago. I was on a plane flight. I can't even remember where I was going. And there was a couple sitting behind me. And I was by myself, and the lady of the couple tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "Are you Jim Sheppard?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, my husband and I are big Illinois fans." And the husband was sitting in the window seat, and he was kind of embarrassed to ask me that, so he had his wife do it.
Nice.
And he was kind of curled up, his head up against the window. So yeah, that happens occasionally, I guess, and I'm sure it's happened to you. Your voice becomes synonymous with a team or a particular show.
I got to tell you, the worst is at the doctor's office.
And yeah,
Man,
that's,
you're having some procedure, and then somebody's like, "Hey, aren't you?"
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that happens periodically, and it always makes you feel good. They still remember your voice. I always kid people when they do that. I say, you've got a pretty good memory. It's been 12 years since I did games. So,
right.
So.
Well, it means you made an impression, right?
Well, hopefully a positive one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What fills your life now? What do you find yourself doing with your time, and what brings you joy?
Well, I recently started a new career in the energy business. I'm working with a friend of mine here in town, and we are selling energy, which is it's a fascinating profession. I also am very, very active and have been for several years with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association. We are in the process of trying to raise money and coordinate the construction of a basketball museum. I'm not at liberty at this point to say where the museum could be, but I've been on that board of directors for the museum committee, and this will be an all-inclusive museum. It'll be grade school, high school, college, the Globetrotters, the Bulls, and it's going to be about a $5 to $7 million museum.
Wow.
And ironically, Tim, Illinois is the only state, if you look at all the contiguous states around Illinois that border our state, we are the only state that does not have a museum or a tribute to all the people, coaches, players, teams, officials, media, friends of basketball, who are recognized. And as you know, the history of this state in basketball is just, it's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear that's going to change.
Yeah, hopefully here in the fairly near future we can make an announcement, but that occupies a lot of my time. I've got
I was going to ask you about grandchildren.
I got grandkids, 3 of them. I've got 5 grandsons, so I've got my Fab 4. Michigan had theirs. I've got mine. Right. 2 of them are in Colorado, and the 3 locally are in Tolono. My 2 oldest grandsons, Cam and Cade Scott, are starters for the Unity team. Proud to say my one grandson, Cade, got second in the state last year in wrestling.
Wow.
And so we're big sports fans.
Well, and you still do some public address
Yeah,
there, right?
I have done Unity football for, I think, 10 or 11 years now.
Wow.
Still enjoy that, and I plan to keep going if my voice holds out and I stay around.
Right.
My twin grandsons have a younger brother, Charlie. Charlie's a freshman this year, and he's football. So
want to see him get through high school at least?
And then I can say I did their dads and all 3 of them's high school career.
That's pretty special.
And from a personal standpoint, that means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
So Friday nights I'm either down at Unity and looking forward to their new facility this year, or we're going to the Illini home games, my wife and I.
Well, I got to say, when my family moved here in '89 and I went to my first basketball and football games, I didn't remember who they played or what the scores were, but I did remember the experience of it all, and the band and the cheerleaders and the smell of the hot dogs, and your voice was part of that experience. And I never, sorry, I shouldn't get emotional about that, but I never would have thought
you would have the chance to do it. It's a wonderful opportunity, and if you, as a kid, I grew up in a small town of Fisher, played ball, and was a very subpar athlete in high school. But
you and me both.
But great memories, and when I got into radio many years ago, I got involved with sports, and sports has always been a big part of my life, and I've just been really blessed when I look back of not only my time with the university, but doing high school games, and just have met a lot of tremendous people. And it becomes, as you know, it becomes part of you. And whether it's a Saturday getting ready for a game or traveling, you doing the Pacers, it becomes part of you. And It's been a wonderful experience. I still like to keep my hands in it with my basketball work and still doing
Sure.
PA for Unity. But it's a big part of who I am.
Well, as it should be, and you left some really big shoes to fill, and obviously you've left many memories in the heads of many Illini fans for years and years to come, despite the fact that you're not in the seat anymore. But I appreciate you riding along with me. We're back at the station, and this has been great.
And you did a great job driving.
Well, I didn't get us in an accident.
Yeah, that's the best thing.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely.